that, my grandfather was not just was he a part of history, but with the big bands and the work that he was doing and the different groups that he played with, Jimmy Dorsey and Tommy Dorsey and Horace Heidt and Johnny Long were the orchestras he was playing with. Then he had his own orchestra, the Tommy Weldon Orchestra. And so that was fascinating to me because he had his own big band. And I looked at the singers and the instrumentalists like Ella Fitzgerald and Jimmy Durante and Abbott and Costello. He was in the movie Hit the Ice with them and was a part of that. Oh. So I looked at that career, I'm like, gosh, that's amazing. But he was also on the forefront of history. Those acts and those performers and stuff were paving the way for younger musicians and younger artists that later came on the scene and started to develop this whole century of creativity that we've defined as the American Songbook, that we've defined as the great legendary entertainers, and all these cats that were doing it that became big legends. They were just loving music and loving performing and sharing that with other people.
As a young person, was it the excitement that took place around all them when you would watch or you would hear the stories, or especially like with your grandfather, like you said, you kind of looked at him differently then?
I did.
You must have thought they were cool cats.
They were cool cats. I noticed you laughed when I said cats. And I remember you used to laugh when I said cats on Talk at 10 when we did that radio show. No, it was exciting. And I think the thing that made me excited about it was the fact that the music itself spoke. And I think the thing that really excited me about jazz and about that era was the music itself had storylines to it. In 32 Measures, we created a very emotional storyline that people were dancing to, especially World War II, the great love ballads that were created and had a real reason for being created. And that music spoke to me more than the music that, my fellow peers were listening to coming off the radio and stuff. And so I think that I did like the music of that it was, Aerosmith's one of my favorite bands, Smash Mouth. I love, in the 90s, Dave Matthews, I was into that. But there was always something about listening to these great jazz musicians that I just always pulled me back over. And so when I started performing and stuff in high school, I was very much listening to everything and everybody because I wanted to understand that music on different levels and stuff and realized...
What did you understand? I mean, when you said you wanted to understand it, was it because you were comparing it to the music that
learning. I just wanted to learn. I wanted to do what they did. I wanted to perform, and I wanted to know, okay, why did Dave Brubeck's piano playing, why was it so different than what Oscar Peterson was doing and a lot of traditional jazz piano players were doing? What made that tick? And so I really loved the innovative jazz of the Brubeck Quartet. And so I got really inspired by that, especially in the writing and stuff. I found that fascinating. And the weird time signatures and the bizarre harmonies that were there. Really fell in love with that component of it. Then, the music of the big bands and stuff, that was something where I really wanted to understand why was the music of World War II, why was it such an impact? And why did all these people get up and dance? And why, everything was based on dancing.
Well,
and
they needed it too.
Absolutely.
They needed it at the time.
Absolutely, but then I realized there were no big venues like arenas where we were doing concerts, and they weren't big shows. I mean, the music, they were performing so that people could dance and be taken out of those hour, 2 hours out of what was going on at that time. And so I found that really most fascinating
and powerful.
And very powerful.